لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. So today, inshallah, the Sahaba that I want to talk about is Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. And before I get started, I want to just ask you guys some questions, so you guys can raise your hand, okay? Who are the Ansar? Who can tell me? Who are the Ansar? Just so that we can have some definitions that we can use in the story. The Ansar. Yes, the companions from Medina. So the Muslims that converted to Islam when Rasulullah ﷺ came from Mecca. And this continues to my next question. Who are the Muhajirin? Exactly. So that's where you get the word hijrah, right? And then Muhajirin are the ones who did hijrah, okay? So the Muslims that came with Rasulullah ﷺ from Mecca to Medina when they did hijrah. So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was a convert who accepted Islam at the hands of Mus'ab ibn Umair when Rasulullah ﷺ and the Sahaba migrated from Mecca to Medina. And there were 3 Sahaba that Rasulullah ﷺ and the other Sahaba would prioritize when they were trying to get people to convert, the people who lived in Medina. And Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was one of them, because of the fact that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had a huge status in the people that lived in Medina, to the point where once Sa'd ibn Mu'adh accepted Islam, alhamdulillah, he was able to tell his tribe that if you do not accept Islam, I won't speak to any of you, man or woman, it doesn't matter who it is, right? Until you accept Islam, then I will speak to you. So this is how he was able to make all of the Sahaba, the Ansar that were in his tribe, convert to Islam. And then there's a story of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. I'm going to mention 2 stories today, or maybe 3, and they'll be quick inshallah, and then we'll just end off. So there was a man who lived in Mecca. His name was Umayy ibn Khalaf, and he's one of the kafirun, one of the ones that actually stepped on the chest of Bilal radiallahu anhu, one of the oppressors of Bilal radiallahu anhu. And Sa'd and Umayy were partners in trade, okay? So Sa'd knew that, Umayy was a man of high status in Mecca, and they were connected by trade, okay? And every time that either one of them would visit either Medina or Mecca, the other one would show them hospitality and allow them to, stay in the house. So Sa'd came to Mecca one of the days, and he asked Umayy if he can stay in Mecca and perform Umrah during a time where there wasn't that many people, okay? And this was during the first year of Hijrah, and Umayy told him, don't go at night, go in the day. It's the hottest day, but it'll be the most empty time for you to do Umrah. Umayy is the same person that used to not let any Muslims do Umrah in Mecca, but he allowed for Sa'd to do Umrah just because he's an optimistic person. He wants to opportunist, right? He cares about the money, right? So he doesn't care if the trades are going to be alive, we'll let him do Umrah, right? But now the problem is that Abu Jahl sees that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was doing tawaf around the Kaaba. He comes out and he asks Umayy ibn Khalaf, who is this? Why is he here, right? This is the same one that left us, right? Took people from us from Mecca to Medina and is siding with our opponent, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And then, they both go back and forth at it, and Sa'd tells Abu Jahl, Abu Jahl tells Sa'd, you think you can walk around in Mecca in safety when you were the one that gave safety to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the rest of the Muslims that betrayed us, right, the Muslims? And then Sa'd said, Wallahi, if you weren't with Abu Sufyan, who is Umayy ibn Khalaf, I would have made sure that your family never sees you again. And then he adds, and he stands up to Abu Jahl and he says it in his face, Wallahi, if you tried to stop me from doing tawaf, if you tried to stop me from going around the Kaaba, I would stop you from something that means so much more to you. And he said that he would cut off all of his trade caravans to Ash-Sham. Because again, the kafirun, the Quraysh, all they care about is the money, right? And they had this connection, so Sa'd threatens Abu Jahl. And Umayy, tries to show his loyalty to Abu Jahl and Mecca, And he says, don't you dare raise your voice on Abu al-Hakam, right? They used to call Abu Jahl actually the father of wisdom, but we call Abu Jahl the father of ignorance, and they were confused, right? And that was their name for him. But this was now, then Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, he responds to Umayy and he tells him that Wallahi, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is planning to kill you, right? And this just shows you the blindness of the kuffar, right? That Umayy ibn Khalaf knew that the word of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was never wrong. And even though Sa'd is telling him that you will die, this scared Umayy, right? He still disbelieves in the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he trusts the word of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that you will die soon, right? So then he goes back to his wife and he tells her, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he promised that I'm gonna die, so what should I do now? And she's like, okay, then don't go fight, right? Just stay in the house. Why are you gonna leave the house, right? So this is where we get that during the Battle of Badr, Umayy ibn Khalaf was trying in every way possible to not go to the Battle of Badr. But Abu Lahab being Abu Lahab, right, he's convincing, he's making fun of Umayy to the point where he convinced him to come out and actually fight during that battle. So another story that we have is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba going on a trip to interfere with a caravan that the Quraysh had, and the Quraysh stole stuff from the Sahaba, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba are going to interfere with this caravan, but little do they know that Abu Sufyan knew of their plan, and they had an army prepared for them. And this is the beginning of Battle of Badr, right? And so now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam realizes that actually we're in a bad spot now, right? We weren't ready for battle, but the Sahaba, but Abu Sufyan and the Kuffar, they were ready. They had an army ready, right? They were, trying to mess with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba during that time, and they had an army ready, and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had no army ready. And this battle takes place outside of Mecca, okay? And during this time, this is why I asked about the Ansar and the Muhajirin. This is the first time that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is outside of Mecca or Medina with the Ansar and the Muhajirin. Okay, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam does shura. Shura is when you ask the opinion of all the Sahaba and you see what's the best plan that we can do. Right? Should we either flee now and then try to make it out alive because they only had 300 people? And the Quraysh had a whole army ready for them. They weren't ready for this, right? Or Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, should we just stay and just fight it out, right? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the idea that he wanted to stay, but he still wanted the opinion of the Sahaba, and we'll understand why he wanted it just a little bit shortly after. So the Muhajirin, they responded to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was actually Miqdad ibn Amr who gave a beautiful response to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, what is your opinion on this? What should we do? Should we fight or should we go? Right? And he tells him that we will not do what the people of Musa did to Prophet Musa, telling them that you and your Lord go fight and we'll just stay here, right? They're telling him, no, we will be with you on your right, on your left, above you, behind you, in front of you, right? And this beautiful response was just from Miqdad, but actually Sa'd had an even better response. And even after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard the response of Miqdad, he still asked, Sahaba, what is your opinion on this? And Sa'd actually now understood that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about the Ansar. So he got his response from the Muhajirin, but he still wanted the opinion of the Ansar. And the reason of this was that the Ansar signed a, we'll say, treaty, right? And on that treaty, they agreed that they would only fight defensive battles in Medina, okay? But now, like I said, this is happening outside of Medina, right? So the Ansar had every right to leave this battle, right, and not fight, and they would have no blame on them because that's what was on their treaty, right, that they signed with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being the most just out of all the people, he understands this, and he's asking the Ansar to give their opinion so that they're not, so that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not saying, you know what, you guys are with me, we have to fight, we have no other option, right? He's still being a just man. So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, he responds to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in such a beautiful way. And subhanAllah, for him to understand that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about him takes a lot, right? And Sa'd responds and he's like, Ya Rasulullah, you're talking about us, right? You're talking about the Ansar. So Sa'd gives him a response. He tells him, I'm sorry, I'm fasting and I'm like dry mouthed. We believed in you, we have followed you, we have witnessed that you have brought forth, that what you have brought forth is indeed the truth, and we have given you our pledges and our covenants on that premise to hear and to obey you, Ya Rasulullah. And then Sa'd says, Ya Rasulullah, go and do what you are going to do. We are with you by the one who sent you with the truth. If you were to go into the ocean, and I wish that I could read it in Arabic if I had more time, but if you were to go into the ocean, if you fought in the middle of the ocean, we would take our army and go right in there with you and fight with you, Ya Rasulullah. And not a single one of us would leave you hanging. And just so we can understand even better, Sa'd was the flag holder of the Ansar, okay? He was like the senior. So what Sa'd says is the truth, and that's how we get, that's how Sa'd got the name of As-Siddiq al-Ansar, right? We have Abu Bakr as-Siddiq of the Abu Bakr was was part of the Muhajirin, but Sa'd was the truthful one of the Ansar, because when he said this, it was the truth, right? He was able to confidently say that none of us will leave you hanging, Ya Rasulullah. And then he continues and says, we are patient in war, but we are vicious in battle. Sa'd is telling him that the Ansar were known for being strategic in their battles, right? But once we get into battle, you are going to see a side of us, Ya Rasulullah, that you've never seen. And it may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show you something from us that will be the coolness of your eyes. So go ahead with the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take us wherever you go. So this is a beautiful story of Sa'd. And also, just so you guys understand that Sa'd was also, he was a convert and he was only Muslim for a couple of years. For him to have the confidence to get up and say this to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and be ready, right, to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this battle when they're down, when they weren't ready for this battle. And Jibreel alayhi salam asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how do you view the veterans of Badr among you? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded saying, the best among us are the veterans of Badr. And Jibreel follows and says that amongst the malaika, amongst the angels, we celebrate the veterans of Badr. The angels that fought on the battle of Badr, they are considered the best of the malaika. And Sa'd didn't just fight, but he motivated the entirety of the Ansar, who accounted for almost 200 out of the 313 that were there to fight the battle of Badr. And one last story just shows you the love that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a practice that the Sahaba used to do during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during this first couple of years of Hijrah, that was called niyaha. And it was when people would go and they would grieve their loved ones by going outside and just crying out their name, right? And later this was made haram, but in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during this year, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was after the battle of Uhud, and he lost one of his most beloved, Hamza ibn Abu al-Muttalib, right? And this really hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went outside of his house and he sees all the other Ansar, all the other Muhajirin crying and doing this practice of niyaha. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, where are the people that are crying for Hamza ibn Muttalib? And then Sa'd, he comes out and he gathers all of the Ansar, and he starts to do this practice with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, here, Ya Rasulullah, we are here with you to grieve the loss, this tough loss that you are having of Hamza ibn Muttalib. So it just shows you the love and the connection that he had with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to end off, the most important part of the story of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, I can't really go into depth about the battle of when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh died, but I will mention that it was in the battle of Khandaq, which is the battle of the trench. And Sa'd ibn Khalaf, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, he got stabbed with a spear in his right shoulder, okay? And he was wearing a piece of body armor. And Aisha radiallahu anha, before Sa'd left the house, she was telling him, you should cover your arms as well. And subhanAllah, this is from the wisdom of Aisha radiallahu anha, that she kind of knew, maybe she had like a feeling that that's how he would die, right? He had the armor here, but he died in the spot that he didn't have armor. So this was an injury that he was suffering, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't take his life as of yet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prolonged his life so that he can see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba were able to win that battle, right, the trench, and that was the last battle that they had with the Quraysh. And then we have a narration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba walking very quickly to the room that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was in before he passed away. And the Sahaba asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why are we walking so fast? And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that I want to get there before the angels get there. SubhanAllah, right? And they're walking very fast and they get there. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam enters the room, he is telling Sa'd, and he's looking around because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has the vision of the unseen. He sees all of the angels around, right? When Sa'd is about to pass away. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says the most beautiful part of this entire story, that the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shook when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh passed away. SubhanAllah, right? The throne of Ar-Rahman shook when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh passed away, and it did not shake out of a'udhu billah, fear, right? It did not shake out of anything else but joy, because we have an understanding that the shuhada, right, and he still is counted as a shaheed because he died from the sickness or of the injury that he had in the battle, right? So he still counts as a shaheed, and we have the understanding that the shuhada, they don't die the same death that we do, right? And in Jannah they are resurrected as green birds, right? And they fly through the skies of Jannah. And their resting place, the same way that a bird has a nest, their nest is in a chandelier that is hanging from the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is why it shook, because because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the throne was happy that Sa'd is going to come to his homing resting place, subhanallah. So inshallah, these stories give us a glimpse of how the life was during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us. He isn't testing us by making us fight these real battles that the Sahaba went through, the trials and tribulation that the Sahaba and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through, but just keep in mind that we are all fighting our own battles, right? And that inshallah these stories give us some hope, some motivation, and they show us what the blueprints of real men look like, subhanAllah, and what striving in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks like, and the reward that is up for grabs when we do strive in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from these stories and allow us to reach a level where we can see these Sahaba and inshallah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah and hear these stories narrated by no one other than themselves. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.